Hello and welcome to this news live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Pakistan says India is instigating sectarian terrorism in the country. Prime Minister Imran Khan said this at a ceremony in Islamabad. Khan said the recent attack on the ethnic Hazara community in Mach was part of an Indian plot. He said Pakistan's intelligence agencies have foiled many terror attempts in the past. Pakistan has lifted all restrictions on visas for Bangladeshi citizens in a major development to boost ties between the two countries. In a statement, Pakistan High Commissioner in Bangladesh, Imran Ahmed Siddiqui, said Islamabad is waiting for the same response from Dhaka. The 8th round of talks between the government and farmers remain inconclusive, deepening the deadlock over the repeal of new agricultural laws. The two sides have agreed to meet again next week. Since late November, thousands of farmers have been camping at Delhi borders to protest against the laws they say only favor big corporates. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei says that Iran is in no hurry to see the US return to the 2015 nuclear deal. In a televised speech, the Supreme Leader urged Washington to lift economic sanctions on Iran. US President-elect Joe Biden has promised to reverse the maximum pressure campaign adopted by his predecessor. The US has reported its highest coronavirus-related deaths in a single day, with nearly 4,000 fatalities overnight. The nation's death toll has surpassed 365,000 with 21.5 million infections. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded more than 200,000 fatalities since the pandemic began, with nearly 8 million cases. In Pakistan, the virus has claimed 48 lives and infected around 2,400 people in the past day. There are more than 10,500 fatalities across the country. Globally, there are 1.89 million deaths and over 88 million cases. And in cricket, South Africa have named a 21-man squad for 2 tests in Pakistan, starting in Karachi on the 26th of January. They will also play 3 T20 internationals during their first tour to Pakistan since 2007. Those were the headlines and detailed stories. Right after a short break, stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan says India is instigating sectarian terrorism in the country. Prime Minister Imran Khan said this at a ceremony in Islamabad. Khan said the recent attack on the ethnic Hazara community in the Mach coalfield was part of an Indian plot. The Premier asserted that India is trying its best to spread chaos in Pakistan. He said Pakistan's intelligence agencies have foiled many terror attempts in the past. Earlier, 11 coal miners belonging to the minority community were shot dead by unidentified attackers in Balochistan. Pakistan has lifted all restrictions on visas for Bangladeshi citizens in a major development to boost ties between the two countries. In a statement, Pakistan's High Commissioner in Bangladesh, Imran Ahmed Siddiqui, said Islamabad is awaiting a similar response from Dhaka. He added the two sides aim to intensify bilateral contacts at all levels. Following a meeting with Bangladesh's Foreign Affairs Minister, he regretted that curbs on Pakistani nationals are still in place. Bangladesh's foreign ministry said the country is looking forward to engaging with Pakistan. Earlier, the Pakistani envoy called on Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, with the two sides discussing various bilateral issues. The eighth round of talks between the government and farmers remain inconclusive, deepening the deadlock over the repeal of new agriculture laws. The two sides have agreed to meet again next week. Since late November, thousands of farmers have been camping at Delhi borders to protest against the laws they say only favor big corporates. The recently passed agriculture laws that allow the government to stop buying grain at fixed prices. The farmers say they won't end their protest until the government repeals the new laws. Farmers' unions and opposition parties blame Prime Minister Narendra Modi's insensitive attitude for lingering crisis. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei says that Iran is in no hurry to see the US return to the 2015 nuclear deal. In a televised speech, the Supreme Leader demanded Washington lift harsh economic sanctions on Iran. He described the sanctions as a treachery and crime against the Iranian nation. Earlier, Khamenei defended a parliament bill that obligated the government to boost uranium enrichment to 20%. This comes less than 2 weeks before US President-elect Joe Biden enters the White House. Biden has promised to reverse the maximum pressure campaign adopted by the incumbent Donald Trump. The UAE has announced to reopen all air, sea and land borders with Qatar on Saturday. Foreign Ministry's Under Secretary Khalid Abdullah Behlul said all ports will be open for incoming and outgoing movement. Behlul said relevant authorities in the UAE have been informed of the new measures. He added that Abu Dhabi will end all the measures against Qatar in the aftermath of the Al-Ula declaration. Turkey says it has neutralized 4 militants of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in northern Iraq. It says the airstrikes were part of a counter-terrorist operation. The National Defense Ministry said military operations were carried out in the Gara and Avasin regions. The ministry said Ankara's operations against the terrorist organization will continue. US President Donald Trump has finally assured that a new administration will be inaugurated on January the 20th. In a video message, Trump condemned the Capitol Hill violence. He said his focus now shifts to ensuring a smooth, orderly and seamless transition.
President Trump said he immediately deployed the National Guard to expel the intruders, but some media reports say he had hesitated, leaving his vice president to give the order. Trump spoke as top Democrats called for him to be removed from office just 13 days before his term is over.
My only goal was to ensure the integrity of the vote. In so doing, I was fighting to defend American democracy. I continue to strongly believe that we must reform our election laws to verify the identity and eligibility of all voters and to ensure faith and confidence in all future elections.
House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called for immediate impeachment proceedings if Vice President Mike Pence and Trump's cabinet refuse to take steps to remove Trump from power. Meanwhile, Capitol Police say 1 officer has died from injuries sustained during the riots. 4 others also died during the unrest. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund has announced his resignation over unpreparedness to deal with the invasion.
China says the US is playing with fire by sending a UN envoy to Taiwan next week. In a statement, China's mission to the UN said the US will pay a heavy price for its provocations. It said the Taiwan question concerns China's sovereignty, territorial integrity and core interests. The UN mission said Beijing opposes any forms of official contacts between Washington and Taipei. Strongly opposing the visit, Beijing called on Washington to stop creating new difficulties for the US-Sino relations. The two are at odds over a range of issues, including the COVID-19 pandemic, Hong Kong, and the South China Sea. The US has reported its highest coronavirus-related deaths in a single day, with nearly 4,000 fatalities overnight. The nation's toll has surpassed 365,000 with 21.5 million infections. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded more than 200,000 fatalities since the pandemic began, with nearly 8 million cases. Globally, there are 1.89 million deaths and over 88 million cases.
passing time and mounting deaths, complexities of the coronavirus pile up. A new study by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has found that more than half of the infections are transmitted by asymptomatic people. As U.S. recorded its deadliest day of the pandemic so far, experts say the country has essentially lost its battle against the virus. Over in the South, Colombia's capital, Bogota, is entering a strict quarantine due to rising infections and suspicion that the new variant is circulating in the city. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says developing states can start receiving vaccines as soon as this month.
We need about $7 billion in order to deliver enough vaccine to these countries through the end of 2021. And the facility has already raised about $6 billion of the $7 billion. So the facility has access to over 2 billion doses of vaccine. And we will start to deliver those vaccines probably by the end of January. And if not, then certainly by early February and mid-February. So
the organization's European branch says the new variant called B117 is currently present in 22 Euro states. UK PM Boris Johnson says almost 1.5 million people have been vaccinated as he vows to inoculate the most vulnerable people by mid-February. France says it will keep restrictions imposed for an indefinite period as the country prepares for its vaccination program. Meanwhile, Spain has now become the fourth Western European state to pass 2 million COVID-19 cases.
The total of confirmed cases reported by the autonomous regions via the monitoring system passes today 2 million cases. Since last Tuesday, the 5th, 42,360 new cases. Around 6,500 cases were reported yesterday, as you can see in the charts, and the rest are from the previous days. The cumulative cases per 100,000 people in the last 14 days in Spain are 321. As you can see, it has grown since our last report on Tuesday.
As Japan battles a severe third wave, the Prime Minister has declared a state of emergency in the capital, Tokyo. Meanwhile, China restricted people in Hebei province from leaving the city. Over in Australia, Queensland has enforced a 3-day lockdown after a hotel worker tested positive for the more contagious new strain.
In Pakistan, 48 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours. This takes the country's death toll to over 10,558. The Health Ministry reported 2,435 new infections overnight. There are more than 33,000 active cases in the country at the moment. Out of over 497,000 countrywide cases, more than 453,000 people have recovered. The ministry said nearly 223,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province. Punjab has reported more than 143,000 cases. In the capital, Islamabad, over 38,000 have been infected so far. Bahrain has conferred its top military award on Pakistan's Army Chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa. The Pakistan military says Bajwa received the Order of Bahrain from Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad during his visit to Bahrain. In a statement, the Army's media wing said the Army Chief was awarded for his significant contributions to defense cooperation. It said Bajwa also witnessed the closing ceremony of Pak-Bahrain joint military exercise Al-Badr 5 at Sakhir camp. Addressing the ceremony, General Bajwa said the exercise signifies the joint efforts of both the nations against terrorism. Bajwa and Crown Prince Salman also discussed bilateral ties and reviewed regional security in the Middle East. More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. At least a dozen civilians, including 8 children, have been killed in northern Cameroon when a female suicide bomber blew herself up in an armed attack blamed on Boko Haram. Officials said the attackers arrived in the middle of the night brandishing machetes. Cameroon's far north region is grappling with deadly incursions from Nigeria. More than 36,000 people have been killed and 3 million people have fled their homes since Boko Haram launched its uprising in northeast Nigeria in 2009. In Ethiopia, the army says it has killed 4 core members of the Tigray People's Liberation Front and arrested 9 officials. In a statement, Army Chief Tesfaye Ayalev said the military and Ethiopian police conducted a joint operation. He said the killed officials include the TPLF spokesperson, its financial bureau head, and other high-ranking personnel. Meanwhile, the detained persons include the former envoy to Sudan and the Tigray State Council speaker. However, Ayalev did not disclose when and where the operation took place. Thousands were killed after Addis Ababa launched a military offensive against the Tigray rebels last year. The UN says the latest attacks in Niger's Tillaberi region forced more than 10,000 people to evacuate. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says many survivors in the 2 villages had to flee on foot. It said Niger's government provided food and medical supplies for the victims of the attacks. And the government is also providing financial assistance to the families of the deceased civilians. The UN said more than 500 displaced children are now out of school. Over 100 civilians were gunned down last Sunday in a terror attack in the western region bordering Mali. Canada has rejected Iran's offer of $150,000 for the families of victims of a Ukrainian airliner shot down 1 year ago. Special Advisor Ralph Goodale said Iran has no right to decide the compensation to the 176 passengers. He said the reparations can only be agreed as special talks between Iran and the 5 nations whose citizens died. Goodale added the damages are more than just compensation, and Tehran has great responsibilities for justice, transparency, and accountability. Tehran shot down a Ukraine plane on January the 8th last year, misidentifying it as an incoming US attack. The crash killed 55 Canadian citizens, 30 permanent residents, and passengers from Ukraine, UK, Afghanistan, and Sweden. Britain's Met Office has warned that human activity is set to push concentrations of carbon dioxide to 50% higher than pre-industrial levels this year. In its forecast, the Met Office said the alarming increase in CO2 levels will breach a symbolic climate change threshold. Scientists say 2021 is seen as a critical year for implementing the 2015 Paris Agreement to avoid catastrophic climate change. They have called for urgent action to slash carbon dioxide emissions from burning coal, oil, and natural gas. Emissions from fossil fuels and deforestation will cause CO2 to continue to accumulate in the atmosphere in 2021. In South Korea, a court has ordered Japan to pay over $91,000 each to 12 Korean victims of sex slavery during World War II. The landmark ruling is likely to aggravate the already chilly relations between Washington's 2 key allies in Asia. It said evidence and testimonies show the victims suffered from extreme mental and physical pain due to the Japanese troops. The government records show that out of 200,000 victims, only 16 are still alive and await justice. The Japanese government said the Korean court had no jurisdiction over Japan and it would never accept the order. In the United States, aeroplane manufacturer Boeing has agreed to pay more than $2.5 billion to settle criminal charges related to the 737 MAX scandal. In a statement, the Justice Department said the company admitted to 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. It will face no further charges from the U.S. Department of Justice. Acting Assistant Attorney General David Burns said Boeing chose the path of profit over candor by concealing information. The company will pay $500 million to crash victim beneficiaries. In Palestine, a young girl with a spinal tumor turned to horse riding to improve her posture. But it did more than that and help her regain some sensation in her legs. Find out more in this report.
12-year-old Layan in Palestine opted for horse riding sessions after a spinal tumor diagnosis. The sessions also helped gain some sensation in her limbs that had been affected by the tumor.
When I first started riding the horse, I did not have feeling in my legs. I used to be afraid while riding. Afterwards, and thank God, I started regaining sensation in my legs. So I started to know how to ride and perform other exercises.
Layan's father says after her chemotherapy in 2017, they tried aquatic and physiotherapy, but nothing alleviated her pain. According to Layan's instructor Al-Nache, a single brush with horse riding started to show improvement in her legs.
When she started, she had immense suppleness in her back and could not hold it straight. The way she is sitting now was not apparent then. She used to have a loss of balance. Currently, she can do her exercises. Her father and I used to help her, one from each side. Today, she can do it on her own. Do the back exercises, Leon.
Al-Nache claims that horseback riding has many therapeutic benefits, especially for children with autism and other disabilities. He says it is safe since horses are very sensitive to their riders and will act accordingly.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Parts of Spain have been covered by a rare snowfall, causing a traffic disruption and cancelling flights as the country records the lowest temperature in its history. More in this report.
The capital city of Spain, Madrid, experienced an unusual snowfall this week due to Storm Filomena, as it registered a low of -2 degrees Celsius. Whereas in Toledo, around 40 miles away from the Spanish capital, white sheets enveloped the city and made driving difficult on roads as the temperature dropped to -1.
They say that snowy years are prosperous years. We will see if this is true.
Cold front blowing in from the Atlantic Ocean blasted snow and icy rain, spending the temperatures to -34.1 Celsius in the Spanish Pyrenees. Spain's weather agency says this was the lowest temperature ever recorded on the Iberian Peninsula. It says the freezing weather is likely to remain through Sunday.
It is a little bit messy. They've put salt on it, but sometimes it slips a little bit. But it's very nice at least.
Storm Filomena also hit the Canary Islands and the southwestern coast of the peninsula, bringing unusually intense winds and rain. The Spanish airport operator says authorities cancelled at least 30 flights in the Canary Islands due to intense weather conditions.
Cheerleaders dance and cheer on commuters outside a rail station in the Japanese capital of Tokyo. The cheerleaders lift commuters' spirit amid the surging cases of COVID-19. More in this report.
Japan has set a new record by reporting nearly 6,000 cases in one day as the government prepares to declare a state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 neighboring prefectures. A group of cheerleaders perform outside a rail station in the capital city. Some people stop to capture the performance on their smartphones while others watch as they leave for work early in the morning.
Especially now, the spread of coronavirus isn't stopping. People have lost their jobs and have had to give up on many things. They can't do what they want to do or don't know what they should do. I think this is a period where people are really suffering a lot. During this time, if we had cried, people would feel depressed too. So with courage, we want to step forward and deliver a smile to cheer people up. We are doing this with the hope that people can feel even a little bit better.
Head cheerleader Kumi Asazuma says the group has been performing for more than 10 years to help energize morning commuters, but their mission has taken on new meaning ever since the pandemic started. She says the group will perform remotely during the upcoming state of emergency.
We probably will do the performance remotely by using computers or smartphones to broadcast from home separately and delivering our good vibes via social media.
Though still less seriously affected by the pandemic than many countries around the world, Japan has seen a huge spike in daily cases. The capital, Tokyo alone, reported more than 2,000 COVID-19 cases yesterday.
Divers in Russia jumping into icy water in the dead of winter to search for some ancient bones. They also dug up skulls of ancient bulls, horses and lions, as well as tools which were likely used by early humans. More in this report.
Ancient shark teeth, bones of woolly rhinoceros, mammoths, and other extinct animals attracted the Russian paleontologists to the ice-covered Tobol River, some 2,000 kilometers east of Moscow. For almost 2 decades, scientists have teamed up with divers for a bone hunt on the outskirts of the town of Kurgan. The search takes place 3 meters underwater as the air temperature drops to -20 to 25 degrees Celsius.
There is no bigger pleasure but to overcome such difficulties and to see something which no one saw before you. Artifacts aged tens of thousands of millions of years, it gives a rare pleasure and thrill.
The bone-rich underwater area, which is believed to be around 1 kilometer long, was discovered by divers in 2004. It is described as a unique ancient bone deposit. According to the scientist, each year river waters uncover a new mix of remains as old as 66 million years.
Among rare finds, we had a bone of a cave lion, which was an extreme rarity then and still is one. As for the Turgai Sea, the West Siberian Glacial Lake period, we found fossil teeth in sharks and shark rays. They all are precious and unique, and they have fantastic energy in them.
This year's findings will traditionally be transferred to local museums after initial studies at the Russian Academy of Sciences.
Wall Street stocks have soared despite the release of data showing the U.S. economy unexpected loss of jobs last month. The Labor Department says the U.S. economy lost 140,000 jobs in December. The unexpected drop in employment rate was reported following the recent surge in COVID-19 cases across the country. Nasdaq Composite trading nearly 1% higher, while the indices of S&P 500 and DJI also traded up. Meanwhile, oil prices are set for a weekly gain on Saudi Arabia's pledge to output cuts. In cricket, South Africa have named a 21-man squad for 2 tests in Pakistan, starting in Karachi on the 26th of January. The 2 new bowlers have received maiden call-ups to Proteas test squad. Top-order batsman Reynard van Tonda has been dropped due to injuries. South Africa have included 3 spinners in the squad. The series will be South Africa's first in Pakistan since 2007. India trailing Australia by 242 runs in the 3rd test at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The visitors went to stumps at 96 for 2 with Ajinkya Rahane and Cheteshwar Pujara still on the crease. Earlier, Australia were bowled out for 338, which included a brilliant century by Steven Smith. Smith's 27th test century ended a 16-month wait and was his first on home soil since a 2018 ball tampering scandal. Manas Labuschagne and debutant Will Pucovski scored half-centuries for the hosts. For India, Ravindra Jadeja was the pick of the bowlers with 4 wickets. In the National Basketball Association, San Antonio Spurs beat reigning champions Los Angeles Lakers 118 to 109. LaMarcus Aldridge scored 28 points to lead the Spurs to victory. The Spurs lead by as many as 15 in the first quarter before the Lakers rallied, but the Lakers could not clear the deficit despite LeBron James' 27 points, 12 assists and 6 rebounds. The victory has broken a 4-game winning streak of the Lakers. The Lakers have captured 2 of the 3 meetings between the clubs in the past 9 days. And now the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.